How'd you like to listen to .NET Rocks with no ads? Easy. Become a patron. For just $5 a month, you get access to a private RSS feed where all the shows have no ads. $20 a month will get you that and a special .NET Rocks patron mug. Sign up now at patreon.netrocks.com.
Hey, Carl and Richard here with your 2024 NDC schedule.
We'll be at as many NDC conferences as possible this year, and you should consider attending no matter what. The Copenhagen Developers Festival happens August 26th through the 30th. Tickets at cphdevfest.com.
NDC Porto is happening October 14th through the 18th. The early bird discount ends June 14th. Tickets at ndcporto.com.
And we'll see you there, we hope.
Hey, guess what? It's .NET Rocks again. I'm Carl Franklin.
And I'm Richard Campbell.
Here for the 1917th time.
It's World War I.
It's World War I. It has officially started. Okay.
We're well into it at this point.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. What's up with you, Mr. Campbell? We just got back from Dev Intersection. Had a great time there.
Yeah. Had a great time there. I was just writing up some of the pieces, the keynotes and things. I mean, it's a crazy time, right? Like the software is moving fast. Some of the demos were astonishing. You had a good workshop. You're real happy with it.
Very happy. Yeah, it was like 30 people in it or something.
Nice.
And all about Blazor.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Fritz did a sort of an intro to Blazor workshop, and
Right.
I did a more intermediate advanced workshop. And I also had a talk called Gotchas in Blazor web apps in
Mm-hmm.
.NET 8, because there are some gotchas. There are some things that Microsoft intended to work a certain way, and then they didn't really work. So things to work around.
It's not that bleeding edge of a technology anymore, though. I mean, you're kind of at V3. Things are sort of maturing out. Like, it's almost a grown-up.
Yeah, and that's kind of why it was surprising that we had gotchas in the first place.
Yeah.
But I think they took everybody by surprise. Not that there aren't workarounds for it, but it's not a reason not to use Blazor, but you just need to know what they are.
I think you've also got a moving surface around you, too. In fact, the comment I've got will tie into that pretty well.
Yeah.
Because these things are changing all the time.
And just to do a little plug, I'm also doing that Gotchas talk with on Sean Walker's virtual event on October 3rd.
Nice.
I don't have a time yet, but look for that.
Okay,
so let's get into it with a little thing we call Better Know a Framework.
awesome.
Roll it.
All right, man, what do you got?
Well, this started out as me sort of pointing to little things in the .NET framework. It was even before .NET Core, and quickly ran out of stuff to talk about. So it just turns into, hey, what caught my interest this week?
I'd point out it was not that quick. There was a period where we were doing 3 of these a week, and you went through the whole flipping framework.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the stuff that was tricky.
Yeah, several years worth of content.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I found this event in the 20th through the 26th of January coming up here. It's called Global Game Jam.
Oh, that sounds fun.
globalgamejam.org. And so just like when musicians get together and have jam sessions and they feed on each other and get creative together, and good stuff comes out, that's the whole idea with this. There's sort of like 439,000 jammers.
Wow.
This is to date, 89,000 games created, 132 countries participated. So it's all online, of course, and they have a Discord and a Twitch stream, and they have videos from last year, keynote. It looks like a lot of fun. And the thing is, too, that it's not just for gamers who have experience. Like, this is for people who might be just game curious.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know how games are created at all.
And the tooling these days is so good. Like, you don't need a huge team. You can do it by yourself, although I've seen lots of teams of 3 be very successful.
Yeah.
And make it maybe a mobile game, make a web game. Like there's a lot of choices.
Right. Yeah. So that looks really cool.
Fun.
I might pop in and check it out and maybe create some games. Might be fun.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep. So who's talking to us today, Richard?
I grabbed a comment off of show 1815, so about 100 shows ago, with our friend Debbie O'Brien. Maybe you heard of her.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Playwright. This is back from October in 22. And I got a few good comments on the show, but this one was very specific. Admittedly, it's over a year ago now. This is from Chris Martin. He said, just getting into Playwright, and it was great listening to the episode of .NET Rocks on it. I'm currently getting this implemented for a Blazor app. What's the best approach for authenticating with Azure AD in our tests? Thanks. And Carl responded to this, actually, back then, talking about Azure AD B2C through Blazor training. I'll include a link in the show notes for that particular show. Although
it's changing.
It's been a year.
Yeah, it's changed.
And stuff's changed. Yeah.
Yep. We went through this period where we were using MSAL, the Microsoft Authentication Library,
right,
as a way to simplify accessing it. And now there's even more stuff that's like I haven't even kept up with it. That's how new it is.
Well, they call it Entra now.
Entra,
right?
yeah.
And so in some ways it's clearly better. I think definitely in my repertoire for the shows coming up is a whole conversation about managed identity.
Yeah.
Specific, and it's one thing to managed identity in production. It's another thing to talk about managed identity in test and in the dev cycle. But you've heard on the news this whole Microsoft Future Security Initiative or Future Secure Initiative. And a lot of that has to do with under-secured dev resources, demos, things like that. So Microsoft is pushing hard for their own people to do this better.
Yeah. Across all teams.
Yeah. And to me, that's super exciting because they're going to knock the snot out of this process. Like they're going to make it better for their own needs. That means it's going to be better for all of us.
I mean, we're talking about people who write white papers, who publish examples, who, maybe do this stuff with 360, the developer team, obviously.
Yeah.
I know my friend Jeff Fritz is in that.
Yep.
Pretty deep.
Lots of folks that are buried in it right now. And again, it's like there's a feedback loop here. Not only should they follow the practices, but when the practices are just too awkward to use, they know where those guys live.
Yep.
Like they'll lay in wait in the bushes outside of the office building. They'll tackle into the ground.
Too soon.
No. I'm just saying, like, I watched what happened to WPF back in the day when the studio team started implementing WPF. WPF got dramatically better. And it was that back and forth.
Hey, if you want to go way back, when SQL Server implemented the .NET framework inside SQL Server, .NET got better.
Well, without a doubt.
Because the SQL team kicked its butt.
Yeah, no doubt. So anyway, I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
And Chris, thank you so much for your comment. And a copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or on Facebook. We publish every show there. And if you comment there and I read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code.
Music to Code By still going strong, and people using it every day to be more productive when they code or sleep or relax or focus or whatever. All right, so let's bring in Debbie O'Brien. Before I do that, though, I need to mention that you can follow us on Twitter. And, of course, we've been on X Twitter for years, but the cool kids are hanging out at Mastodon. I'm Carl Franklin at techhub.social.
And I'm Rich Campbell at mastodon.social.
Okay, so Debbie's been on the show before, of course, but if you don't remember, Debbie O'Brien is the principal program manager at Microsoft. Debbie has over 15 years of experience in front-end development. She's worked as a tech lead and consultant for many important clients with various technologies, and often with a strong focus on performance, static sites, and testing. She has led teams both in-house and remotely, as well as giving workshops and training. Also has many years of experience as a mentor for online learning platforms, Treehouse, and Open Classrooms. Debbie's also a Google developer expert in web technologies, a Cloudinary media developer expert, and Nuxt ambassador. Boy, there's a mouthful. As well as a GitHub star alumni and a previous Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in Developer Technologies. Debbie, I think you need to be a little more, what should we say? Just try a little harder, I think.
I know, right?
I'm
trying to get the YouTube award. That's my next one. You know, that like big thing when 100,000 followers. I've got 5,000, so I've got a long way to go. But yeah, I need more awards.
Yeah. I tell people I'm kind of the same way. I just don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I certainly haven't grown up yet.
Yeah. Why start now?
Why start now?
Goodness knows.
We're talking about Playwright, and Playwright is sort of the canonical web testing and automation, actually, platform that does snapshot testing, like we talked about with our friend Simon Kropp, and it does all sorts of other things. Why don't you tell us what's on your mind in terms of Playwright?
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone should already at this stage be testing their applications, because there's absolutely no excuse in the whole world why people are not testing, right? Go back a couple of years, like 10 years ago, no one was testing. And I completely understood that, because testing was hard. Testing took time. Testing was slow. Testing cost money. And now it's the opposite. If you're not testing your application, you're losing money as a company. You're dealing with bugs that you shouldn't even have to deal with. Right. So, yeah, I've been trying to get people to test their applications. And I think still there's people not testing. And I don't know how to fix that, Carl, Richard. How do we fix this?
I think most people assume, and I'm going to assume that they assume, that, well, why should I test? Because I know this routine or this method or it creates this UI result. Why do I need to prove it right now? I can see that it works. But the question is, well, how will you know when some other developer takes over your project and does something on the back end that changes the outcome? That's when testing becomes really valuable, right?
Yeah, and just changing think about forms, right? Forms are one of the hardest things to test manually. And I don't know if you've ever done this, a manual test, and you start manually. And what I mean by manual is going to the computer as a user and filling out that form. And then you find out the typical, for me, it happened to me today. I was putting my name in. I have an apostrophe in my name. Right. Well, nobody tested the web, and I couldn't put a specific type of apostrophe in. It wasn't accepting it. So it wouldn't accept my name. Right. And nobody tested that. So I couldn't get in. I had to go to the actual computer. I couldn't do it from my phone. I had to go to the computer where I had more access. I was able to do it. But when you're actually testing that out manually, you're filling in all those things, and then you press submit and you get this error message, and then there's something is broken, and then you go in and you fix it, and then you go and fill all that in again. And you keep doing that process, a repetitive, horrible process that I used to do, that you used to do back in the olden days when, that was the only way we could do things. But now you have tools such as Playwright that basically is an extremely fast you, right? It is you times 100. Right. And that can fill that form in 100 times faster. So that basically is automated. Once you write that test, that form is filled in. And this is the cool thing, that you basically, to write that test, you just manually fill in that form once. And you do it by using the code generator tool. You code gen the test by filling in that form. It's going to generate all that code for you. And then you just basically press play. And on your CI, it just runs anytime the pull request is done in. So if someone changes anything, it's going to run that. And it saves so much time, and it's so easy and quick to do it. So
the thing that occurs to me about web testing tools like Playwright is that they have an advantage because they can inspect the HTML, which is just text. They can inspect the output. Whereas if you're trying to do that, say on a Windows Forms application or a graphical application, you have to do image, OCR for the text and image processing and all of that kind of stuff. And we just don't need to do that with, you can still do screenshot testing, right? You can say, well, the screen should look like this, but you have the web layer allows you to be a lot more accurate.
It brings it closer to the user. And what we're doing when we're testing Blazor applications, right? We're testing what the user sees, what the user does. Simple thing is testing dark mode and light mode. This is the cool thing, right? Nowadays, everyone has to have their website in 2 colors, right? How can we test that? Well, we can test that the CSS class is there, and that can be done through Playwright. And then you can just easily have a test. Yeah, that's dark mode, light mode. That's a simple test, right? Do you care? Well, maybe you should if that's important to you. What's more important is, filling out the forms, making money, putting articles in a shopping cart, actually purchasing things. And that's what the user does. What buttons does the user need to press to get to that payment? And if you can test that whole process from that start to finish, the money is going to be in your bank.
Yeah. Well, and it's lots of friction you can remove in that process. And turns out if it's easy to buy, people do buy more. So, there's money to be made in creating good workflows that way.
Right.
I just think these are the tools that help you detect where you're stumbling before you push it out there and start losing money on it.
Now, I use a tool called B-Unit from Egil Hansen for Blazor components. Does that work in concert with Playwright? Is there something that does what B-Unit does in Playwright? What's the whole ecosystem look like with that?
So for component testing itself, we don't really support anything outside of our experimental, which is kind of Vue and like the component testing itself. I'm not sure if you can put a Blazor thing inside a Vite application. That's something, and push that up. That's something I have never tested out. But we're basically like, when it comes to Blazor, you're testing what the user sees. That's already compiled. That's there. It's visual. It's on that front end. So your components are making up a web page. Your components are making a story, and that story is taking you. It's more about the integration between those components.
Sure.
How they integrate together, and when on the page they do what they're meant to do. That button is a component, for example. That shopping cart is a component, and that all interacts together to be able to get to that stage of filling out the form to fill in your delivery address to get the product delivered to your home, etc.
So you can still write B-Unit tests to test the individual components if you think you need to. But what you're saying is Playwright works the macro level. It just works at the whole website. You fill in this form, you expect this result. If you don't get it, then the test breaks.
Yeah, like think about it. The user doesn't care about your code, doesn't see your code. So unit tests is not covering what the user sees and does. Mm-hmm. It covers your code, and is your code going to do the job, right? But end-to-end tests, integration tests, they're covering what the user physically does in your website. And it's like manual testing years ago when I used to do this on a Friday, right? In a job, 10 years ago, everyone stop what you're doing and start using the website as a user would use it. Go and start doing stuff, right? And then fill out issues. Oh, this doesn't work. File a bug. This doesn't work. File a bug. That's ridiculous doing that nowadays. And still people are doing that. Still people are paying manual people to press buttons. And that should not be happening. So Playwright is that manual person pressing the button, but that's much faster than that manual physical person that would have done that 10 years ago.
One of the things I run into when we start to build bigger websites is we have so many tests that it slows down the CI/CD pipeline. I've gone to great lengths to like break tests out across multiple instances and things to try and shorten that time up. Is there tools in Playwright to make that easier? Yeah.
So there's things you can do, like basically you've got to remember what's the slowest thing about testing when it comes to Playwright. It's the browser, right? It's you're normally you should be testing as well your website across multiple browsers, across Safari, across Firefox, across Chromium. And once you're doing that, you're spinning up that headless browser, right? There's headless means that there's no visual part, there's no graphical interface. So on CI, you don't need to see something. The CI basically spins up the browser without the actual graphical interface, but it's still spinning up a browser instance for your tests. And tests are run in isolation, right? So that means, there's a new browser instance being spun up every time there's a new test, because otherwise, your cookies would jump from the same, if it was the same browser, right? And then you'd have a mess of your tests, you'd have flaky tests, and you'd go crazy. So when you have like a lot of tests, you're spinning up all these browser things, you can do a couple of things, right? You can go sharding, shard across multiple machines, which can be good and can be bad depending on how you set it up. Because if you shard too much, remember, you've still got to download the browsers for that shard, right? So if you have 8 shards, there's 8 times you're going to do that. Are you saving time, or are you? So sometimes you have to decide how many shards do I need, and you've got to play around with those numbers. Now, another cool thing that we have is the Microsoft Playwright service, which is not the open source part of Playwright, but the Azure part. So if you're in Azure, you can basically use cloud-based browsers. So now the browsers that you normally are like downloading are in the cloud. And I know it's like we all talk about the cloud, and we have to imagine this physical cloud, and the browsers are up there, and you're basically sending your tests up to this cloud, so it doesn't need to download anything. But what that means is you're just running your tests, and you're not doing the browser instance part, which saves a hell of a lot of time. Now, obviously,
Sure.
this is an Azure feature, so it's costs money, of course, but you save money in the long run if you're talking about scaling at an enterprise level. You're talking about large scale. You want to run, I don't know, 10,000 tests, and your pipeline is being slowed down. 45 minutes it's taking. You want to take it down to 3 minutes. You know, any company would pay for that, right?
Yeah, no, if I'm running tests in the cloud, I'm paying for that. So the fact that you've made me a dedicated service for this purpose, like that sounds good to me. That's just going to make fewer mistakes.
Is that ratio like 45 minutes turns to 3 minutes typical?
No, that's just me making up a number from the top of my head, because obviously everyone's tests are different, and you'd have to test it out. But the amount of time saving across all the examples that we've kind of run it on, and then the clients that are using it and the feedback they've been given us is the amount of time. No one is the same, right? But everyone has saved immense amount of time.
Yeah.
And then also what's really important to a lot of people as well is being able to see, like, you know, to see those tests in a kind of like a dashboard style, to be able to go back and forward, and then like have a report, right? And see a report of like, this is what happened, this is where it failed, and have a trace of that test on your, you know, CI on your, in the cloud, so that basically you don't have to, you know, go to local and locally spin up that trace file and then debug it. You can basically almost debug it in the cloud, right? But yeah. So scalability was an issue, and we solved that issue because we also need to solve that issue, because otherwise we're losing time.
That's great news.
So testing as a service, is that where we're going?
I think we just need to fix testing in general. And I'll be very truthful. We do not have it all figured out in Microsoft. We're still learning, because we are so many people, so many teams. We're like so many mini companies, if you kind of think about it that way. And everyone is trying to, like, you know, deliver products, right? We've got a lot of products, right? How do we test all these, and how do we create a better solution across Microsoft? And then how do we let you all use that solution? Because if we just test it in ourselves, we don't get the value from, like, oh, but what about this feature? And we need this. So, you know, making sure that Playwright is open source, and then having those other services for the enterprise scale really helps us to make a better product. But yeah, we're not saying that we have everything solved in Microsoft and we know everything. No, we're building things as we go along, and we require, like, the Playwright service is going to, the reporting is in basically GA this week, right? It's like literally, it's new. So we don't have it all figured out, because someone might come along and say, oh, we want this feature. Well, cool. Tell us, let us know. We'll build that feature for you, because we might also think that feature is necessary for other people. But yeah, everything is being built around making lives easier, making testing easier. I think easier is our big word here. Easier, and getting more people to test.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see it's still in preview too. So it's just a hint that, you know, you're all learning by how people use it and what it's for. But I appreciate the idea that, you know, this is the same angle as, why would I build a bunch of virtual machines if I can use an app service? Why would I, you know, deploy my own caching if I can use a Redis cache service? Like, you go as far up the stack as you can. That's cool. I'm excited to see that, just because, I don't want to build these things. I'd like you to do it for me, please, and charge me by the test.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think if you have that many tests and you're paying for it, that means, you know, you've got some good coverage going on there that it's worth paying for, right?
Yeah. Maybe we just made too many pages, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, well, I mean, it's been 2 years since you were on, more or less. So it's neat to see Playwright continuing to evolve. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you have a special love for JavaScript frameworks.
Yes,
that's right in your bio. I'm not hating on you. I'm just reading here, reading your bio. So how does JavaScript play into Playwright, if at all? Is any JavaScript? Are there entry points for JavaScript in Playwright if you want to do some custom things? How does, that's the question, I guess.
I think what's important to understand about Playwright is that it can be used across 4 languages, right? So if you are like myself, I'm a JavaScript developer, or TypeScript developer now is what the cool kids say. then I can basically use that language because that's what I'm familiar with. That's what my website is built in. So I'm naturally going to write my tests using the language that I know.
Mhm.
But Carl and Richard, you're .NET people, right? And you're C# probably better than JavaScript. And your website is probably built in Blazor. So you're going to want to write your tests in C# and not in JavaScript. And I totally understand that. And that's why Playwright is so cool, because you can just do that. Because you can use Playwright as a .NET developer. And I know this is .NET Rocks, but let's talk about the Java people and the Python people, because they can also write tests using Python and using Java. And it's the same API, and you don't have to learn new tricks. And, you can have one company, which we do. We like in Microsoft, we have various, and we're using different languages depending on the teams and depending on what we're testing and what people are comfortable with. So we use .NET, we use Python, we use Java, we use JavaScript. There are differences, of course, right? I'm not going to lie and say it's the same across the board. It can't be the same across the board for various reasons, because test runners, MS Test, you can't compare the MS Test to the PyTest, for example. They have different stuff, right? And in JavaScript, we built the test runner in Playwright, so it's a little bit different. We've got a little bit more leeway on, doing certain things.
And I just want to say for the record that some of our best friends, right, JavaScript, Python, and Java. Okay. So isn't that what they say usually when somebody accuses you of being anti this or that? Some of our best friends.
But either way, you are testing a web app. You're just able to write the code for the test in C#.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Playwright just sees what's out on the website, right? What's being produced, what the you inspect code, right? And so you can see what the user can see, that accessibility role, right? It just sees that is a role of a button, and it's looking for what a screen reader would read out or what a user would see. You see as a button, and it clicks that button. And it does not care if your button is written in Blazor, React, Vue, Python, whatever.
Yep.
No, you don't want to make writing the test the barrier.
Exactly.
Like, you want it to be as easy as possible. So I appreciate that. Write in the language you want. Now, I could write tests in Python. That's one way to slow myself way down.
It could be fun there. You might learn something.
Maybe. Yeah, it's interesting to think about writing in different languages for different tasks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So break time? Want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a little break.
All right. We'll be right back after these very important messages. Did you know you can easily migrate ASP.NET web apps to Windows containers on AWS? Use the App to Container tool to containerize your IIS websites and deploy to AWS managed container services with or without Kubernetes. Find out more about App to Container at aws.amazon.com/.net/modernize. Attention .NET developers. Looking for the ultimate SDK to handle electronic document processing? Meet TX Text Control. TX Text Control is your go-to solution for seamless PDF generation, secure electronic signatures, and efficient digital forms processing, all within your .NET applications. Empower your products with robust document management capabilities, boost productivity, and deliver top-notch solutions to your clients. Trusted by developers worldwide, including me and Richard, TX Text Control is the SDK that makes a difference. Check out demos.textcontrol.com for live online demos and see it in action. And we're back. It's .NET Rocks. I'm Carl Franklin. That's my buddy Richard Campbell.
Hey.
And our friend Debbie O'Brien. We're talking about testing with Playwright. And just a reminder that if you don't like those ads and you don't want them, you can pay $5 a month and be a patron. And you can get a feed with ad-free shows. All right. So we were talking about... we're talking about all sorts of stuff and testing in different languages, but snapshot testing is something that I learned about from Simon Kropp. And so the idea is that you have these following inputs and you expect the following output. And is that primarily how Playwright works, or is it even simpler than that?
So it's just another part of something Playwright can do. Right. So snapshots is like, you're testing that something looks the same. That, for
Right.
example, this is really good for when, say, like those banners appear at the top of your, the Black Friday banners that appear. And then what if like it's there and you want it to be there, but you wanted to, I don't know, make sure it's not there after Black Friday, because then it doesn't make sense. So you could like, write a test that then shows the banner and then makes sure that it is exactly the same as the banner, right, on the website. But yeah, there's a lot of people using snapshot testing or visual regression testing. It's a whole ball game. It's not easy, right? Because across browsers as well, there's slight little differences. So you've got to also make sure your pixel differences are kind of the same, because Safari will do something a little bit different to Firefox, because that's just how they do things.
Right.
But definitely, I think if people are getting started with testing, I wouldn't say go and make sure your website looks exactly the same as the snapshots, like everything, because you'll end up possibly things will fail if you change that button. You've got to recreate those snapshots each time. So I would always say, like, that's an extra, that's great and it's cool, but first make sure that your user can do what the user should be doing. Whatever it is on that website is going to bring you money or make you click that Patreon button that you talked about. Whatever it is, test that. Then do the accessibility testing, the regression testing, the API testing. There's a whole ballgame of things that you can explore.
Sure.
Right.
But I mean, the snapshot test is really about a look and feel thing rather than a functionality thing.
Yeah, it's about that it looks the same. Basically, that it hasn't changed. That the designer didn't put a CSS hidden on a button and now they can't see the button, for example.
Right.
But then if that was the case, Playwright wouldn't be able to click the button. So that test would fail.
It would still break anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. But sometimes there are times when visual regression testing is really important, especially when using, when they say like a lot of advertisements on your website and you want to like remove those and just see what the website looks like without those. You can mask those kind of things. And
oh, no, websites are so twitchy these days, right? Like, thank goodness for Pi-hole. Otherwise, there's stuff flying at you in all directions.
And you can also exclude things. Like you say, I want this page to look like such and such with the following data because we put in a certain input. But little things like the date and the time, we don't care about that. That can change. Yeah.
I'm kind of staggered at how it would do those visual representations. You just talked about sort of headless browsing where there is no visual component, but does it do something different when it wants to create a visualization?
Well, it's just like taking a photo, and then like it takes a photo. I'm just doing an example here, right? You take your phone out and you take a photograph of your screen of the website, and then you change your code, and then it takes another photograph, and then it compares those two it overlays one in front of the other,
right?
And it kind of sees like, is there a pixel difference? Has the button moved over there? What's it expecting? And where is the button now? And I'm using button as an example, but it could be anything, right?
But it is pixel perfect.
But you can adjust that, right? You can say, I want it to be like so many pixels away because, I don't know, it's an animation that's gonna do stuff, and you want it to be able to move a little bit or whatever.
So I wasn't really thinking of taking screenshot testing. Snapshot testing, something I learned from Simon, because he has a tool called Verify, and it's really just testing the HTML output of a page. So like a form, right? You fill in a form, you press a button, it's going to give you a summary of that data, and that is what it tests, that the output of this matches what we expect it to match. So I think we might be talking about two different things.
We're probably talking about different things.
But it is in that case, it's literally a text comparison to the HTML.
Yeah.
Like if I was doing visual representation comparison, I could write the page different ways, but have it present the same way.
Yep.
Not that I'm good enough to do that, but that would be interesting.
Yeah. You want to make sure that this div with this ID has this content, right? Which is different than, comparing screenshots.
Visual representation.
Which is also valuable. I mean, absolutely. There's just so many ways to go about testing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the brittleness of tests, right? Like most people dive into testing. The first round of tests they build, the next time they do an update to the app, every single test is broken. And they just like, why did I do this? Like,
yep.
And Debbie, jump in on this. Like, how do you write non-brittle tests?
I I think you just have to constantly test. You got to like make sure that I don't know. I think
hire
use
Debbie.
the tools.
I think that's
use
the answer.
Tools that are there. I would say use the tools that are there. Code generator, right? The code gen will generate the test for you. I think a lot of people going back in the previous days would have wrote their test using things like XPath, using things like CSS selectors, right? And that was like the right thing to do back then. But our front end, and I don't know about you guys in the Blazor world, but we change. JavaScript are known for, we're changing things all the time, right? We're constantly like changing. So our HTML is changing. And if you're going to change that, the XPath is going to change, which means your test is now going to be brittle. It's going to break. Just changing your CSS class. A new developer comes along and he changes the CSS class of your website and your tests break. Well, that's not good, right? So you need to avoid things like that. And the way to do that is, use the test generator tools to generate those locators. Locators is how you locate an element on the page. So how do I locate that button on the page? You use a get by role button, and that button has a name called submit, and that is tested. It's also tested for accessibility, and it's easier than for you to go along and just do whatever you want with that button. Change the CSS of it, put it in a different place. Playwright's going to look for that button with a row of button called submit, and it doesn't care where it is on your page because that's not important. What's important is that the user can click it and the user can get to that next section of the page or whatever it needs to do with it. So I think making sure you test as close to the user as possible will save a lot of problems in the long run when it comes to brittle tests.
So instead of on Fridays, you guys all get together and push buttons, now you're getting together and updating your tests. Or maybe you're doing that every time you check in something, right?
Yeah, and
make sure your tests are working.
And what's really cool is like the code generator tool is very cool because you literally like it launches up a browser window, right? And you put in your website address and you start using it as a user would, and you generate that code. Yeah. And then you've got tools like GitHub Copilot. Right. And you can do really funky things with Copilot because you can turn around and then say, add a test step for my tests. And it's going to like literally take the code that you've just written, that you just generated. Actually, you haven't written it. You've just generated, and it's going to put it into test steps for you. And it's going to do all these kind of other stuff that you want to do it, or put it into a describe block, or, you can help. GitHub Copilot can also help you to improve the code. So as a developer, you're not sitting there just like writing the boring parts of testing. You're using the tools to your advantage.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that definitely, I remember in Strange Loop, I think the third go around of writing tests for Strange Loop, we'd gotten better at writing tests that just were going to be more tolerant. Like you're still checking the value the way you want to, but you're not fussing over, unnecessary elements of that means that the slightest change in the test fails.
Yeah.
Like I think it's really an art to write good tests. Some stuff that'll give you check the stuff you need to check without being infrastructure brittle, where minor changes to things just derail all the tests.
I think that's the difference between unit testing, right? Whereas unit testing really is so close to the code that it's like you change something in the code, your test is going to break. And with Playwright, really, you can change something in the code and your test shouldn't break unless you change, say, like what the user sees, and instead of a submit button, you put upload, and now it's going to like look for submit and it finds upload because they messed up the translation or whatever.
Or you've removed a field, or like there's also good test fails where it's like, I made this change and the test shows that I made this change. Now I can remove the test or change the test.
Yes.
Like I don't mind it when it is clear on stuff. What I mind is, hey, we wrote 300 tests around this set of pages and I changed this CSS structure and every test is failing now.
And that's the difference between unit test, right? Because you write that test and then you can't really see what's going on, right? You're stuck in code land. Yeah. But in Playwright, when you have that failing test, you spin up a trace of your test. And that's like basically being able to go think of a video, but better. So a video with dev tools. A video that you can manually step between every single step and go back and forward in time at your own pace, and have a DOM snapshot that you can just pop out and inspect the dev tools and say, right, I know what happened here. somebody put CSS hidden. And I'm just going to use that example because that actually happened to me on one of them that I was testing on the podcast website. And they put CSS hidden and Playwright couldn't find it because it isn't visible to the user. So if the user can't click it, but the code is there, the code didn't change, the CSS changed, and the CSS could have been in a different file to the code, right?
Well, so that could have gone the other way, right? You've hidden it, the test passed, and you deploy it, but the users can't work, right? That's that. Yeah. You want to be able to catch that too. It's always going to be a battle.
Can Playwright penetrate to the level where it can see components with shadow DOM?
Yeah, it just works.
Components?
It just works. Iframes, it just works.
Wow.
So
well, that was a simple answer.
Sorry, I try to make it more complicated.
It was a yes/no. It was a yes/no question. I can't. That's great. Yeah, that's great because that has been a problem in the past.
It has. That's why we had to solve it because problems need to be solved.
Yeah.
Do you find that developers are using Playwright in their local cycle, or is this purely part of the CI/CD pipeline?
I think it has to be both because you need to. I always think that unless a website is finished, which I very rarely see in a product.
Finished?
Exactly. So unless it's something that you are never going to touch ever again in your life and you're going to write those tests and it's just on CI/CD for whatever reason, but no, nothing is ever finished. Things are always changing. So running your tests locally as you're building some code, as you're adding additions, as you're changing things, always makes sense. Some people don't. Some people push it to CI/CD so they can just get their code up there and they're not testing it locally. And then Friday they make all their changes, they push, and then they can't go home because something broke. So running it locally always helps, and having the tools, it's when tests are quick and easy to run, it means people don't mind running them locally. When tests, if your test takes 45 minutes to run, as a developer, I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to run it locally.
No,
I might run the one test that I'm working on.
Yeah,
but it might affect other things, the code I'm working on. So,
and that's sort of that integration test that after the fact.
Yeah.
Now you go check the integration effects.
So I always say, new code you're building, I'm building this new feature. Then I really want to work on those tests. I'm writing those tests. As I'm building the feature, I write the tests, and then I'm testing that, and then it's now deployed, and then it's running on CI/CD, and it keeps running.
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of things.
I mean, the CI/CD part is not optional. Before this heads towards deployment or load testing or the next stage, it must be thoroughly tested. It's just a question of how much of that can you pull down to the local workstation for that dev cycle and the impacts that would have on them. I guess it'd be great to organize it in such a way that you could only need to test the piece you're working in.
Are there any common misassumptions or barriers to entry or gotchas that people will find?
Is that a word?
Misassumptions? Maybe that people will run into things that they assume that it does that it doesn't do, or what's the typical getting started barrier that you see people having?
I take it back. Misassumption is a word.
Oh, look at that.
Sorry.
You looked it up?
I did. I can't. I just what? Have you met me? You've met me. I appreciate you met me. Debbie, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we're sorry. Okay. So I think what's really important to note is that tools change and evolve over time, and things get better and we improve things a lot. So sometimes people will say, I'm going to go write a test, and they are too, I'm going to use the word lazy, but it's just, that's my word, but it could be another way of describing it. They're too lazy to read the documentation. So what they do is they just go and they say, I'm going to write a test. I don't want to read docs. So what do I do? And what do we all do? We just Google, right? And you just throw it into Google, or now we got the new Google, we got ChatGPT, right? And we say, how do I write a test in Playwright? And sometimes the results we get are wrong. And we don't care because we don't know, because we didn't read the docs. So we copy and we paste that code and we put it into our test. And then we go, my test is breaking and I don't know why. My test doesn't work and I don't know why.
Or it works when it shouldn't work.
Exactly. So this is really important to kind of make sure you're using the latest version that, Playwright is, the first time Playwright came out 3 years ago, the locators were different to what they are now. And sometimes ChatGPT isn't up to date. It hasn't been trained on the latest model. So it's going to give you an old version, right? Someone on Stack Overflow maybe wrote that a couple of years ago, maybe doesn't know much about testing. You have no idea of their knowledge level. You're just copying their code and their answer, assuming that they're all experts and that you're not an expert. But really, if you just go into the documentation and did the same search in the documentation, you would get that answer.
Isn't that funny?
You get a better answer.
Are there really good examples in the documentation of, for people getting started, their walkthroughs or that kind of thing?
So I'm going to be very, very honest and tell you that I did never basically ever install C# on my computer until literally a couple of months ago.
She's a web girl to the end, right?
Yeah. You're absolved of all guilt.
So I built the getting started docs for C#.
Oh, nice.
And I took it from start to finish. And I mean from start to installing on my computer.
Wow.
So if I, as a non.NET developer, can write a Playwright test in .NET by following the Getting Started guide, then a .NET developer should be able to do it 10 times faster than me and should be very successful in a very short space of time.
Well done, you.
Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's
It's actually
great.
really easy to install .NET. I realized there's actually a purple button. You just press it and then it just installs. I did not know that.
Yeah. We always have this problem of there's too many ways. And some of them are difficult. Some of them are hard. And if you pick
You know what I did? I asked ChatGPT, and you know what it did? It sent me down the wrong path.
Oh, man.
Because I didn't go to the docs.
Yeah. Who's lazy now?
Yeah, right. It's like having an intelligent mentor that sometimes loses its mind.
Well, it gave you an answer. It just wasn't the easiest answer, right? Like that's a tough concept for a piece of software to figure out.
Got to change your system prompt to, can you not give me any dumb answers? That would be great. If you don't do that,
answers,
you're only
please.
going to get dumb answers.
I mean, the answer sounded good to me. It felt familiar in my world. It was like, homebrew, just homebrew it all out. Yeah, that's me on a Mac. That does it. But no, you don't need that.
Was it Hunter that told you? It's like, we made a button. There's a button.
Yeah. Why don't you know about the button?
What about the button? It's a big purple button. One thing that I've noticed as an aside here that ChatGPT is terrible at is CSS.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, don't try to solve a CSS problem with ChatGPT.
I had a CSS problem. Use ChatGPT. Now I have two problems.
Now I have a problem factory. Yeah.
I tried it with Kubernetes, then I had a container of problems.
Yeah, CSS is terrible. I'm sorry.
Or did I have a problem orchestrator? It's one of those.
I might as well ask the JavaScript web queen here. Do CSS visualization tools exist so that you can see a tree view of your application so you can more easily diagnose CSS problems?
I mean, we just live in DevTools, and the DevTools is amazing. And even you
really think so?
Yeah.
You think the DevTools are amazing for CSS? I mean, I guess you do see the tree.
You see everything.
And all
you
that.
can see accessibility for your components. You can see the color. You can even modify it and say that color is not accessible. But if I can just scroll it across a bit, this is an accessible color, which means you can go back to your designer and say, hey, that gray, it's just not going to work for me. But if you want, can we make it this gray? Because that would work accessibility wise. And then they just kind of give, they love their colors and their stuff. So they go, oh, that gray is a little bit different.
Yeah. I guess what I'm really looking for, and maybe the dev tools haven't and have just missed this, but when you're several layers down, like maybe 10 or 11 or 12 layers down, and you have some CSS that's all messed up and it's not what you expected, can you query that and say, where did this particular attribute come from in the CSS tree?
Why is this hidden?
Yeah. Why is it hidden? Why is it purple? Why is it not purple?
I think a lot of people write very, very bad CSS, and that is a problem that you need to solve, and DevTools can't solve that, and there's no tool that can solve that. I tried to solve that in a company, and I literally re-architected the whole thing, and the amount of times CSS, this is being used across 20 components, and you change it once and it's going to affect so many others, but you don't know about it because this file lives somewhere else and it's just being called and bundled together. I mean, Tailwind kind of solves that a little bit. If you wanted to go down that road, that's what I would have used.
Maybe there's a good AI solution out there waiting on the horizons that you can just ask, why is the button not purple?
There you go.
Or whatever. And it'll find it in the tree and Bob's your uncle.
AI is going to solve all our problems, Carl.
All the problems.
All the problems, I know, yeah.
Pretty sure that's not true. Copilot for CSS, here it comes.
You laugh. I bet it's coming. Yeah.
Well, that brings up a great question, Debbie. What's next for Playwright? Like, how long's your to-do list?
I think the to-do list is never ending, and nobody can ever know, because like when we last spoke, I never knew that, cloud-based browsers were going to be a thing. That was never because we didn't have that scaling problem. We didn't have that many people using Playwright. So we didn't have all this feedback from all these people and companies and community. I mean, we went from 0 members in Discord to over 13,000 members.
Wow.
Since we spoke, basically, right? So all those companies are now using Playwright. So you need different solutions. So we basically use GitHub.
Yep.
Playwright is open source, and people file issues and say, we have this problem, we want this tool, we want this. And everything that we built is based on upvotes from our users. And you just go to that, file an issue, and upvote it.
Look at how organized these issues are. My goodness. Tag nightly, collecting feedback. Like, I can see you guys are taking care of this. Part of the inner loop, like, because people are asking for features, things they think are bugs, but may or may not be. Like,
exactly.
So really are developing out in public, basically. Anybody can contribute. Anybody can read. Lots of comments too. Like, you're clearly prosecuting these. Like, what do you think of this? What about that way? How would we solve it this way? Because
we have to understand, right? Sometimes people say, I need this feature. And like, well, explain to us, because I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So we need to understand, like, what is it that why do you want this? Why is it important?
Or the question that all Microsoft people ask, why would you ever want to do that? It's not a threatening question. It's a real question. Like, why? What's your why?
Yeah. Because then we can say, well, that sounds great. Let's, put some time towards that and work on that one instead of this feature, right? Or fix this bug instead of that bug, or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, it's just you could write the code too. Like, if you're that interested, like, you can contribute. We've
had some external contributors, especially in the last releases. And I think now GitHub has done some really nice thing where you can kind of see their names and their picture, and it's really cool. So that even is nice. So yeah, do.
Yeah, neat to contribute to a project like this. Like, that would be really fun.
Because we are a very small team, so we can't do everything that people want us to do, because it's just not possible. So we can only say, right,
lots of triage.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get that. That makes a lot of sense.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Sounds like a fun project to contribute to if you're looking for.
You've had a lot of contributors. Holy man, look at this list.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
We have a great community. I told you, with 13,000 K in Discord. Weird.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. I see your commits.
Well, Debbie, it's been an absolute delight having you on the show again, and congratulations on Playwright's success. And we hope our listeners will check it out.
I mean, they have to. We hope. You got to be stricter, Carl. You got to tell them.
All right, guys.
By next episode, you all should have written at least one test.
And I want to see some comments on Hiver, right?
I would say, I would challenge anyone who thinks or has never written a Playwright test. I would say take 7 minutes. I want to say 7, not 10, just a little bit more than 5. 7 minutes. Go to the Getting Started guide and the documentation of the .NET and basically write that test. And you don't even have to have a website. Just put in any website and just go through it and write that test. 7 minutes and you'll have a test written. And if you're a junior developer, you'll get a pay rise in a second.
All right. There you go. Let's make this about money. There you go. All right, Debbie, thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you next time on .NET Rocks.
.NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC.